you all set? Danny, you ready to go?
Yeah, okay.
I guess I'd entertain a motion on the abatement, what we wanna do.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we vote on the abatement.
How are you gonna vote? I mean, are you denying it?
Well,
That's what we,
Move what he
I'll-
wants to vote on, yes or no.
I'll make a motion that we deny the abatement.
what, you have a second?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Or denying it? Thank you. Who's in favor? Thank you. 5-0. All right, now we're gonna move on to the agreement. That's what it is, purchase lease, you're right.
I'll move on to the foreclosures. Foreclosures, there's two foreclosures that we're dealing with tonight.
Okay.
Both parties were invited, neither is here. The first issue is a foreclosure on 23 Ambrose Cove Road. There's a land purchase installment contract that we put in the binder for you. We're recommending that we use this particular land purchase installment contract. And we believe that having met with the individual, that person will fulfill the contract. However, there were other options that the lawyer that we talked with that helped us draft this had, and he had reserved his.
He or she, that's what he had.
Well, we talked to a female. She was working with a female lawyer. In any case, she said that there aren't gray areas in this contract, and we recognize those as potential for a lengthy process if, in fact, the individual fails to follow the contract. However, as I said, I'm pretty sure the person will go to the contract. Can't guarantee anything in this world, but no matter what process we follow, we have all kinds of rules and requirements within the days.
So, can I ask, can we outline the three different types for the board so that with the land purchase agreement, what is the gray area?
I see that. I don't have a copy of this.
Oh, yes.
She drafted it.
I'm with it. I know it's for me.
Okay.
Well, and I was gonna just write on there what the difference
Yeah, take mine.
If anyone's not gonna write on there.
I didn't get a copy of my book.
All right, so pros and cons on the land purchase agreement.
It is actually, the title is held by the rights on the land purchase agreement. On the other two options, the title is held by the town of Belgrade. And we would be responsible for the insurance. Unless we put it in the lease agreement that, for the mortgage, they were going to be holding the insurance, but the lawyer does not recommend that. Cover the basis and it'll cover the insurance.
No.
The land purchase agreement would have to take them to Superior Court.
Okay, let me ask one more question. The title held by the owner, it looks to me like under the land purchase installment, the title was held by the town until the purchase price is completed in full, and then the title reverts to them.
It isn't. With the lease purchase agreement, it transfers back immediately too. We file it as registry of deeds and it transfers back.
The lease purchase?
I mean the land purchase
Land
agreement,
purchase.
sorry.
Okay, well, let me see what my thing is here then, because when I read it, I thought that that's what I read. Purchase shall remain, purchase shall earn loss payee.
Is she recommending one over the other?
No, she just described the options.
Excuse me.
So we are considered the repeat vendor. We provide the purchaser with evidence of the title at the time of execution of this contract. So we're gonna give them back the title to the property at the beginning of the purchasing?
And the amount that I put in there for them to purchase it back includes all the interest, the lien charges, when we set it to 2017 lien, and it includes the estimated 2018 taxes, so that by the time it's paid off in 6 months, she will be current on her taxes, including 2018 taxes.
So, and it did include 2017, you said?
Right.
So, that's what it was for.
Sounds right to me.
Very
It
late.
will be right up to date.
To 2019, okay. And then the homeowners. So homeowners under land purchase, no homeowners would be able to lease with purchase?
The lawyer said that we could actually get homeowners, we could require them to get homeowners insurance through this lease with purchase option. She does not recommend it. She recommends that if we own it, the title's in our name, that we should get insurance.
Put the charge in the monthly payment.
Yes.
Now, I have a question.
Go ahead.
If the town, in the option number 2, the lease with purchase option, if the town carries insurance and adds it to the lease agreement, then the town is being paid for the insurance that it's
That's
carrying
correct.
on that property.
Yep.
So the town's not losing money
Right.
on insurance because, I mean, you can make it part of the agreement that the tenant carry insurance. I mean, the tenant kind of has an agreement to have insurance on their car, and they don't have insurance on their car, you know? So I'm not so sure that, you know, they might get insurance on it, but they may not continue to pay the insurance on it, and so on and so forth. So it seems like if, with option number 2, the town basically has to get the insurance added to the agreement. That's really the only way to do that aspect of it. What is from what I see here, the lease with purchase option is less complicated. What's the downside to that versus the land purchase agreement?
Well, you certainly could go there. Here's my feeling.
Okay,
This is a personal feeling.
sure.
That gives you eviction power. So you have an elderly couple who are living in a place that they have no mortgage on.
Okay.
All right? But for the circumstances of the individual, they're in arrears and they have lapsed, and we now own the property. There's no mortgage on it. So that puts us, if they fail to follow it, it puts you in the ability to evict them. I have testified a couple bills over the last couple years, including one this year at the recommendation of the board,
I'm aware.
to work on areas where we can avoid having this kind of issue put people out of their property.
Sure.
So from that perspective, certainly we can evict them. We can certainly do similar thing. It'll take us a longer time on the property number 1. Proposal number 1. I guess I just don't feel that that's something that I want to get involved in. But that's me, and I'll do whatever you want. It's just, I believe we have a good understanding under the land purchase agreement with the folks. I don't think they want to, I think they want to very readily get that property back. But you never know what's going to happen. And it just gives us, certainly it's a longer time frame. But I don't know whether anyone really wants to push people off property that they currently own without a mortgage. But that's an obligation we have to uphold our agreement with other property owners.
Sure.
That we do whatever we can to get that tax back, because we don't want to have other property owners subsidize that.
Mike?
It strikes me, excuse me. They all give us the power to evict. in fact.
Yeah.
It seems that number 2 is easier, it's easier on them. And I think the town is protected, at least the way I read this, it sounds like the town is protected.
So we'll have to go through lawyers if we choose number 2, and there'll be additional fees for the tenant, for lawyers, and
We're gonna have,
we'll might have to put the lawyers' fees on.
what fees did you say, there's insurance?
No, the lawyers' fees
Lawyers'
to
fees.
draft up a lease agreement.
So you're saying number 1 doesn't require any kind of agreement?
Because
It
we,
doesn't, I typed it up and had to review it.
So we don't already have a lease agreement that the town uses for the properties, the other properties that the town owns that we rent out to people?
We have lease agreements. We have rental agreements, we have an agreement for management with the company that takes those fees and oversees the lease. The rental. We have a contract with a rental agency.
So, and then I guess I have to ask, if we've already taken a down payment from the homeowner of $500, we haven't given them a receipt, so when we give them a receipt, it essentially looks like we've already entered into a contract.
No,
with
that's
them.
just a payment on their taxes. It's just like anyone could come in and pay down in the future on past taxes.
So then it is not going to go towards this?
Yes,
It is going to.
that's what we wrote the contract for. She came in, we wanted her to make a good faith effort. Now, this isn't, you're not tied to this. I mean, we certainly can do one of the other three options. But, that's just,
Well,
So essentially, because what we have here, we have a down payment of $500 paid upon the signing of this contract, the receipt of which is hereby acknowledged. So this contract has not been signed by them, so we've requested something of them that is part of this land purchase installment contract, but they're not, we didn't give them a receipt showing that that's what it indeed was, because that's clearly what it states here. So,
well, it's amounts to earnest money. If you buy real estate, you sign a contract, you have to give them earnest money to show that you're.
but they've not signed a contract.
But you didn't sign
So that's
anything.
my thing is, and what we clearly state in this contract is that receipt of the $500 goes towards this upon the signing of the contract, but those two things go hand in hand.
we wanted to make sure that she understood that she had to get this paid, right? So we asked for her to pay down she said, I can pay $500. So we asked her to put down $500. We accepted the $500, and we're gonna use it toward the initial, as a down payment on this contract.
Is that her understanding?
That's her understanding.
I'd like to.
And that's- so it's sort of like a verbal-
Hang on, one at a time. Sorry. Bernie had his hand up here a few minutes ago.
Well, I'm learning more here as we go along. It sounds to me like what you're saying, Melanie, is that there's a lot of gray area in both 1 and 2. It states here that there's a lot of gray area in number 1, but there's actually gray area in number 2 as well. So, I guess I get it, what you're saying about, keeping people in their homes and so forth. And apparently, from what I understand, we've never done number 1. We've
done any of these as far as
Okay.
I'm aware of.
All right, so as Rick said a few minutes ago, that, we haven't done it. We should try it, maybe in this case, and give it the best opportunity to work. And my concern is, and I could be wrong here, but it sounded to me like going with number 1 gives these people a chance to perhaps take advantage of the town if they default, and don't pay, because then we gotta go through Superior Court and all this kind of stuff. Whereas it's perhaps a less complicated issue with number 2, should that happen. But we can give them the better, I agree with Denny that maybe we give them the benefit of the doubt in this case, and we try to understand they wanna stay in their home and get it back and get current and so on and so forth, and this is an opportunity for them to do that. We'll have to monitor it pretty closely, but I'd love it if it worked and wasn't real problematic, so that, maybe if this comes up again in the future, we've tried it, it has worked, and maybe we can pursue it again. But if this comes back to bite us this one time, I don't see it happening again. So, but it's worth a try. So.
Can you want to let him answer his question? I
Well,
guess.
all I was gonna say is, you never know when these things are you can't guarantee anything. Each case is different, each case is separate. One case may fail, the other, so you try to provide an option that works for everyone. So I think this option will work. I don't know, we haven't done this before.
Yeah.
I haven't done this
Sure.
before. I'm just giving you a best guess from my perspective. Having talked to the lawyers and having Melanie, having worked with Melanie and the lady, that will work for the town. The town will always have that, I mean, if they default here, we always have that property. It's not like you're gonna lose the property, it's just a more difficult process to get it back perhaps. But then again, it shows some in terms of this, it shows some trust in the person to fully comply with this. I can't get into particulars, but in terms of issues, reasons for non-payment, but it's not, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mike?
I'm just, it seems to me that option 2 gives the same benefit to the tenants that you're talking about. One, they get to stay in their home, they get a chance to get their lease back, their title back if they come to the end of this and they paid all their installments. But it makes it easier for us and cheaper for the town if they do default to take the next step and take it back.
Like I said, it's up to
I mean,
you.
is that true what I said though?
When you say it makes it easier for the town?
Well, we don't have
think
to,
it
do
makes
we
it
have to go to
necessarily
Superior
easier.
Court on option 2?
And
You're
I
gonna
don't know
have
what the price is.
Well, actually, the eviction process is a long and drawn out process. I've experienced that in the
Yes,
last
it
6 months with another issue. It can be just as long and drawn out.
So either one.
Kathy?
I'd be perfectly willing to give it a shot. I think that you folks who have worked closely with this lady, with the boots on the ground, sort of have a better sense of how she is and how things will go. I think that I must say that I don't have a lot of faith in the history of what you've laid out, but I also hear you saying that you think that this is something that can work and will work. And I frankly would be willing to support you in that.
Thank you.
Which option?
Number 1.
Go ahead.
Well, and I sort of feel like from the board, everybody really wants a little bit more information on the different options. You know, and if, I don't know if we maybe got something in writing from the attorney, or if there were some notes taken, or something, so that everybody understands.
This is everything I wrote back.
Well, look, we will, if you could direct me in terms of the questions you want to answer, you just want more information.
Well, more information, so, you know, and I think that that's sort of what the board is looking at, if in moving forward, not just for this one, but if we have other ones that this affects. So if these are the 3 options that are available to the town, in doing the best that we can to keep folks in their property, but get their property taxes current, but keep them in their homes, then if these are the 3 options, then I think that everybody on the board wants to know exactly what is involved in each one. So if we have a purchase agreement and they default on it, what are the steps that the town has to take? Is it the same steps for option number 2? What are the steps for option number 3? So that we can come to an agreement as to what is the best case scenario that protects the town as well as protecting the individual. So I'm not good with there's gonna be more cost involved with the attorney, or there's gonna be more of this. I'm good with numbers, you know, tell me exactly what we're looking at so that I can do apples to apples and decide what's the best case scenario.
Is there any reason they can't wait till the next?
Oh, no, we can wait. In fact, I was thinking, in fact, because we have 2, I was asked by the previous board to put this on the agenda for the 20th.
Absolutely, and I wanted to go back on that a little. Just to let the new ones that are on the, we could have acted on this a month ago, and we didn't, because we wanted to give a little more time to the people, and we wanted to see if we could do this the right way.
And to add to that, in a couple of cases, it worked.
It worked.
Yeah.
Mike,
I'd like to make a motion that we table this till the next board meeting.
do I hear a second?
Well, the next one we can before we do it.
We can still talk about
Yeah.
it.
We'll put it on the table.
I'll second the motion,
Okay.
and then we'll discuss it.
As part of no matter what we do, can you draft a letter from the town to the homeowners that the $500 is actually down payment towards whatever option we choose? Just, I think that legally that covers our butt. I don't know about covering our butts, so.
Now, my-
Build a shed for the donkey.
What clarity are we looking for to make a decision at our next meeting? What are we looking to have? Are we
As
just
I
gonna-
understand Melanie's issue, she wants a little bit more clarity about process if the system fails.
Sure.
If the approach fails.
Sure, that makes sense.
On either of these things.
Yeah.
And potential impacts on the town in terms of cost, et cetera. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we'll provide.
Okay. And I have one question, if they hold the title, if the homeowners hold the title, should we go with the land purchase agreement, correct? If they would hold the title?
Right.
But there would be something akin to a lien that, I mean, you know, I don't know these people, and obviously they want to stay in their home and so forth, but I don't want somebody to, think, well, let's just sell the house right away to our Uncle Ted or whatever, and
$100.
because they have the title to it.
Yep.
I mean, I don't.
We own the title, well, they did,
Right, the land purchase agreement will be filed with the registry of deeds, so it won't be a clear title on
All
it
right,
until it's
so
paid,
if they
so
were
it'll
to
be discharged to that.
pull a fast one and sell it for some
Still a
reason.
lien on the place no matter what.
Right.
oh, yeah.
That's what we're missing.
That's what I want to make sure.
Mhm.
I mean, they could be fine and upstanding, and I know that, but, just cover our, cross our Ts and dot our Is.
So when we say the title is held by the landowner, it's not held by the landowner, because we file with the registry of deeds, and then when the purchase agreement is done, we file and.
Right, like a discharge that
And
says it's
discharge.
paid in full, yeah?
Okay, something like a quick
A
claim.
quick claim deed that was back to them.
I think that's happened in the past.
Yeah. Okay,
Okay, we have a motion
to table this.
Table this, Everett. First and second on it, guess I'm looking for, all in favor of tabling it? All opposed? Now, I'll tell you my reason now, we're putting this off another month, our policy says we don't do that. But that's okay.
Okay,
Is it putting it up another month, we put it to the next board meeting?
Yeah, we're putting it
So
off
she's
another,
supposed to
another
be
time.
in the third for the first of the month, are we not accepting her payment? When she comes in? Or we
well, she can always pay down on
accept
the
it?
taxes.
I would take it.
I would if it's from me on the other side of it, and someone from the town of Belgrade called and said, listen, the board of select persons has a couple of new faces and they requested some additional information. We're gonna make sure everybody has all the information they need. You're essentially being given a pass here until the 1st of May. So here's your extra 30 days grace period, 1st of April. Well, if the first payment
First
was
meeting.
gonna be due on the 3rd of April, then the next payment, the first
We'll
payment
act on
actually be due May.
We'll act on the first meeting in April, we'll act on.
Okay.
And then,
We made a decision on that, it's 4-1 against. We're gonna move on to the next one.
Yeah.
Go
Okay,
ahead, Danny.
this is a foreclosure that was occurred on the Ardito property at 1005 Augusta Road. We had several registered mails going to Mr. Ardito, letting him know what was going on. In fact, I talked to him personally just a little over 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, week and a half ago. And told him that this was coming up and that the board could decide to sell his property. We currently have the property, it's ours, but that the board could go forward and sell the property, should he not come in and work an arrangement. He had indicated that he was gonna come in last week, if I'm not wrong, and make an arrangement to pay the taxes. That didn't happen. He is here, you can ask him directly what's going on, but I would recommend that we pursue the sale of the property through the procedure for the town policy.
Absolutely.
In that, it requires one last step where he can enter an agreement to pay back, but there's additional costs that he'll incur. And I explained that to him a while back, so that's where we're at on this, and you can, Mr. Ardito's here.
Go ahead, you got the floor.
Yeah, hi. It's been a comedy of errors, the reason why taxes haven't been paid. I have assets coming out of my ears. I own, with no mortgage on the canoe shop, a small mortgage on my home on the West Road, 10-acre estate that's worth a lot of money. Couple of lots, a long pond that are paid off. It just, we're going through a reorganization. We're trying to get back into business with a full stock, couple $100,000 worth of stock, like we used to have. It's been complicated. Been working with Jennifer Hayden down in Auburn. And there is one, to straighten out this little tax matter, I do have one piece of property on Wildwood that I can sell right away. Doesn't have any liens on it. The other ones may have to go through a complicated legal action to lift the liens and sell some properties. But it's not because they don't have assets, they've paid taxes, we've been going through a reorganization. I mean, we went through the recession like everybody else. Our business has been down, we have some liens with some of our manufacturers that when we do liquidate some of the property, that'll be taken care of. So as far as the tax for that building, we should be able to get that paid very quickly because the property at Wildwood is only selling for $20,000. It should sell in a couple of weeks. There'll be a sign on it soon, and this will be, in fact, I could, with the notary, I'll sign that this will be the first bill I pay with those proceeds. We want to stay in business. We were very profitable in the old days, and things happen. You know, we weren't just avoiding it. We had some healthcare problems, normal things that require a lot of cash. To be healthy in this country costs a fortune, and that could put a business out of. To have a few weeks stay in the hospital could put you out of business. That's priority. So those are the kind of things that happen. We're not trying to avoid not paying. It's just a complicated situation. But I have the assets to cover it, but not today. I can't liquidate. It's not easy. When you have liens on it, it's complicated.
Danny, I know you've got.
Well, no, I mean, we've been, talking to Mr. Ardito for some time, to get these taxes paid, and I've heard Mr. Ardito say similar things in the past. And it hasn't come forward. He's more than willing to come forward and work out an arrangement with us, but we have to have concrete payment steps. You can't just say, well, here you go, we're gonna sell this property in a couple weeks, trust me. And that'll take care of it. And so that's why I'm moving, that's why we moved it forward, and that's why the recommendation. You certainly can entertain whatever you want, but.
Under our current policy, we can't.
Well, you can entertain it if you
Well,
want.
we can.
And also to save costs too, rather than me having to take off the town lien after you've already advertised this stuff, which I probably will have to. I mean, we're going to stay in business no matter what. Even if it's advertised for sale, once the property's sold, we'll pay this tax. Like I say, I'll sign in front of a notary that you guys get the money first.
Melanie?
Well, I guess, Ralph, the question that pops right into my mind is that if you knew this was coming and you had a few weeks lead, or, a couple of weeks at least on this piece, months for the other thing, and if you're saying that you could have put the property up for sale, why wouldn't you have done it already?
Because we have liens on it. We have a
So the one-on-one.
situation, we may have to go through chapter 11, but not on this one particular property that I can sell.
So that's what I'm asking, so the one that you could sell, but what you're saying is
But
that
that
then
just
if you
happened.
sold that property, then you have liens against other properties, would you be required to pay those liens first?
Yeah, the other ones, I may have to do a chapter 11 because they're larger, but my total assets, $700,000-800,000. My liabilities to these liens, about $110,000. Just that has to be legally done. I've been trying not to spend all the legal fees. I've been trying to work this out with the manufacturers on my own. So far, so good, but the cash flow has been tight because of it. But our intentions are to stay there and do business. We own there's no mortgage on that. I have no debt. I have no car loans, the only debt I have is the mortgage on my house. Everything else is paid off. It's just not that easy to sell something and say, here. It's complicated sometimes. But that lot on Long Pond is sellable immediately. There's no liens on that one.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
So you've been in reorganization for how long?
Well,
You're not in, chapter.
No, I'm not in it. My lawyer's Jennifer Hayden.
Yeah.
Auburn.
Sure.
We're trying not to.
Sure.
So we're contacting the companies, trying to negotiate and liquidate some of it to restock the shop. I mean, the tax liability for 6,000, is it?
About that.
Is not a major thing for our assets. It just hasn't happened.
Yeah.
We've had terrible weather too.
Yeah.
I couldn't have sold that place for $1 the last month with the weather. But our goal is to be a very profitable business like we were. We used to be Old Town's largest independent dealer in the world.
Sure.
We used to sell 1,300 kayaks and canoes out of that place.
Yeah.
You remember,
Yeah.
Dennis? It was,
Yeah,
we had a huge profit.
Mhm.
That's why I bought these properties.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I bought the land, paid off the building.
The reason I asked is, this isn't, we're not just talking about 2017 taxes, we're talking about way back to 2015.
Yeah, well, it's been going on that long.
Yeah, it's been
It's
going on
a
that
lousy economy. We had a recession,
Sure.
health problems.
Sure.
I had to spend a lot of money on a little health thing I had.
Sure,
I'm 100% now.
Yeah.
And
Great.
like I say, I don't have it today, but as soon as I do,
Yeah. Yeah.
from that sale of that property,
Yeah.
it should go pretty quick this time of year.
Sure.
'Cause I sold a spot last year, a $50,000 lot in Wildwood, last April. I had to give the buyer back his deposit
Sure.
because of the liens.
Mhm.
Couldn't straighten out the rest of it. But that was sold, and that was gonna pay us off, and other things.
Uh,
I'm not trying to avoid it. but-
So, thank you.
Okay.
One other question I had was, can I ask, what's the status of the tax payments on these other properties that Mr. Ardito owns? Are they current?
You only own one other one in Belgrade, correct, your homes?
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
current,
That's
Yeah.
current. So the other properties that he speaks of,
Yeah, everything's
aren't in
fine.
Belgrade, so I don't know the answer to
We
that.
don't know.
whether in Rome or
Yeah.
where have you.
Which one's on Long Pond? Is it on Long Pond?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's at Wildwood.
So do I direct the question to the chair or to
Yes.
you?
In the chair.
I mean, the chair or the town manager?
Me.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I would like to pose the question, where is the property for sale that's currently for sale without lien attachment?
Can you tell him that?
The
Whether,
tax lien from the town?
no,
Where's the Wildwood property?
So if we could put a Band-Aid on
It's in
it
Rome.
and we
It's
could
in
sell it, we
Watson
could buy
Pond
it,
Road.
I'm
It's in
wondering,
Rome.
okay,
we have no jurisdiction in Rome.
okay.
But I could sign something if you wanted to, on the auspices of that lots.
It's not that type of business.
Well,
Hey,
notary, I mean,
what's that? Yeah.
under the canoe shop, that's property of the canoe shop is that owns all those properties. That's me, I'm a sole proprietor.
I understand.
So everything that comes under my business, which used to be profitable and it will be again. The only thing I have to do is put some stock in and I'm back in business. There's no stock there.
I understand. Emily?
So, I guess, Ralph, I come at this as my parents owned the business for a number of years, and at a certain point, they were in the printing business, and there was a whole lot more internet stuff going on, and they had great high hopes of turning stuff around and doing something differently, but at a certain point, they had to cut their losses instead. Okay, so maybe this isn't gonna go the way that we want it to go, but we've gotta make sure that everybody that we owe money to is paid up.
Well,
So if
you're first for this property here, Rome. My other stuff is in process of liens. There's nobody coming after me. They're all dormant now. My properties are liened until I sell something and they come in and grab it. So, I don't have any debt right now. My monthly bills are nil, electric, stuff like that. House mortgage.
All
But
right.
I don't have any, that 6,000 will come out of the proceeds of the sale over here at Rome. That as soon as the weather's good, it's out.
Well, and I
It's only
guess-
$20,000.
So what
Well, I
decision
guess
do we
that's
have
what
to
my
make
issue
here?
with it is you knew this was coming, and if that's your intention was to sell this piece of property, I can take a piece of property and slap a sign on it in the wintertime.
Okay.
And if somebody knows it's in Wildwood and they know the area, then somebody could have already purchased the property. So,
Well, no, it just got lifted.
so there
What
was
decision are we
nothing done
supposed to
on
Well,
the-
it's just complicated.
Hang on.
Okay,
I would like to know what decision we are being asked to make here.
The issue is whether you want me to put this out for sale or not, and that's what I put forward here.
I don't think we got a choice. I mean, the policy says this is what we gotta do.
All right, I'm fine.
And we can't just keep taking, signing on a cup and,
Yep,
I mean, that's,
We're talking about a $200,000 or $300,000 piece of property.
Danny?
And if I may, the process, if we were, once we put it out for sale, often requires us to notify the owner, and that, the owner then can, it says, that once we have advertised for sale, the former property owner has sent a final letter, which will be registered, stating that they have until the next board meeting to pay all taxes and fees associated with the property. This includes liens, legal fees, and advertising fees in accordance with the policy on redemption of foreclosed property. And this letter will be sent, and it says tracking the car registry. So,
Plus, there are liens on that canoe shop that you'll have to satisfy
no,
when you sell it. Well, the person bidding for it will have to. Yeah, but I mean, somebody's gonna have to pay a lot of money, and there's also a giant oil tank in the back of that building that the new owner will have to take out. There could be some serious legal things. I'm just trying to save you some money in the long run, really. This is not the property to take that quickly. It needs a little research. You may want to get a lawyer involved, have them go over there, look at it. It's not that, there's water in the back there too.
Okay. No, you don't, that I know of. I don't know, am I correct? We don't have any other option.
Well,
if
I'll sign a note.
But if we get a
under
follow-up policy that we have for the town of Belgrade, we don't have an option.
You know, I tried to pay some of it a few months ago. I couldn't
Why?
because of your system. Because it already been reenacted, the system to do this at the board.
no, we've let you
Well,
know.
I was told that I couldn't make a partial payment.
Ralph, all along, we have asked you to put some money down on this and pay it, get it caught up. We've been doing that
Well,
since I came on board.
Caught up.
can we just make a
Yeah,
vote?
caught up with $6,000.
All right, I think, I guess I'm looking for motion what we're gonna do here. Whether we're gonna follow through with a contract that we already have, policy that we already have, how do you guys wanna go about it? We need a motion.
I make the motion that we follow our policy and we proceed.
I second.
What about the bid, what about the liens on the person purchasing the property? That's a legal
I second.
wrangle you're gonna have to pay for.
Well, we're not gonna have to pay for it.
Well, you're gonna have to find out what
This
the
is not the
liens
place to
are.
argue that.
It's fine, we're gonna.
No, this is not a simple matter here.
We understand. This isn't the first time we've
The
been.
person who puts a bid on that, they have to pay $200,000 in liens and take a big giant oil tank. That's, you gotta think about that.
I've thought
You
about it.
may be in serious legal problems if a bidder, you take a sealed bid and he's got a big oil tank in the back.
You don't think he's gonna know
We
that?
don't have a
How's he gonna know
survey,
that?
do we?
I'm not gonna tell him.
To be,
I'm not gonna tell him.
We
You
do
gotta
it now.
that's a serious.
It's gonna
But
be
anyways,
good.
We're done, okay?
Okay,
Okay. We've got a
I'm just
motion.
gonna have to pay
And a
the,
second.
Seconded. Anybody else, any more discussion?
well, and I just wanna make sure that Ralph understands that in the board taking this does not mean that you don't have the option to buy
right.
it back. So what you can do is you can put that piece of property up for sale. Then you
Yeah.
take those monies and you purchase this back.
But
This-
you're gonna
this is
incur
what it's
costs.
for.
Solve the problem.
That you're gonna have to pay. You're incurred another $1,000, because this has to be advertised.
Can you explain that to him how it works? Just,
Right now,
We
Well,
don't need
just
to do
quick-
that right now.
quick overview that we're not gonna be paying it.
Well, essentially, is what we do is put it out to RFP, people will be bidding on a quit claim deed. Quit claim, it's not a warranty deed. So they'll purchase the property based on what they can find out about it when they go out and purchase the property. We just are gonna sell our interest in that property. Whatever they want to bid on that interest, the highest bidder would, then come forward and, we would give them a quit claim deed. If there's any other liens on it, that's their worry, not ours.
Okay, we're ready to vote. Everybody ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay, I'll entertain a vote. All in favor? All opposed? No, I was gonna propose. Thank you.
Can you tell me how much extra this is gonna cost me, tax-wise, when you put this in paper?
Don't know yet.
Well, can you let me know when you find out?
We will be,
Talk to Danny.
as part of the process, we'll be sending you, information on the cost, detail, which is accurate, should you decide to do so.
This is not what we like to do, but what
Well, I'm here and I had a solution.
the solution would be, we need the money.
It's $6,000,
Absolutely.
that's all.
But anyways, we're done.
And that's worth how much?
Thank you. We're done.
Well, you know, it won't look good on Facebook.
Whatever.
That's a
I'm sorry.
big difference, 6,000 to 300,000. That hits the news, that's not gonna look too good for a small little town,
Thank you.
dealing like.
Thank you. All right, let's move on.
It's only 3 years,
News
dude.
bus- Excuse me,
It's only 3 years.
excuse me, we're done. Okay,
What does that mean?
we've acted on this, we're moving on to the next line of business. Okay? You're more than willing to stay there and get on with us on the next step? We're done,
So if I sell it next week,
we're done with your.
can I bring the money in and pay it?
You can follow the,
After the
When
meeting, you
does
can
the
have a
next
meeting with
1,000
Denny.
occur though with the advertising? That's what I
we'll be sending you notice of all.
Okay,
You
all
get
right.
on notice.
Thank you, sorry about it, but we're gonna move on. New business, we have the Friends of the Belgrade Library contract. It's pretty cut and dry.
I move approval of the contract.
I got a motion to approve it, do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Do we need a separate motion for the
I think
addendum?
we probably ought to,
The addendum?
two different contracts, right?
Yeah, one's an addendum to it.
All right, now let's do them both. I don't,
I'll do the contract.
so you're gonna do,
We have to do, well, I'm doing both. if
okay,
you want.
just do them both.
Okay, I move approval of the contract and the addendum.
Now do I have a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. 30 seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, I entertain a vote. All in favor? Thank you. Next thing is approval of election workers. Looks like for 2018, 2020. We go for 3 years, 2 years, whatever.
It's 3 years, I believe, 2019.
Yeah, okay. And, you've got the list in your book, you want me to read them off, or do you guys all set with it?
I make a motion, we approve the, list.
So you're a second?
We should say their names.
Yeah, all right.
I'll second the motion that we approve Wayne Pulsifer as warden, Cheryl Cutt, Catherine Dameron, Ken Hagan, Joan McKenzie, Jordan Stoll, Kelly Webster, Penny Morrell, Howard Hollinger, and Barbara Barrett.
Thank you.
Question?
Second.
Question?
I do.
Go ahead.
Barbara Barrett is my wife, should I abstain? Is that a conflict? Like,
I don't,
No,
okay, up to you to decide.
we understand.
Okay,
there's no money involved, it's very little.
big bucks, big bucks.
All right, I have a motion and it's been seconded. No more discussion, all in favor? Thank you. That's it.
There is one spot still there. If somebody wanted to fill it, would we come back and approve that? We can do that.
Next thing up is the town meeting wrap-up discussion.
Yeah, as we've done in the past, after every town meeting, we attempt to try to find out how we can improve the following town meeting. I know that there were some issues that were brought up at this town meeting, which we'll correct. And I've asked for a checklist to be built so that we don't forget these items in the future. And I think, Anthony, you're working on that, or Cheryl's working on that checklist. And, so I'm looking for feedback to see how we could improve it. I know, you know what it is.
I can kind of start off a little bit here with you, and I've already talked to Denny. I was a little surprised we didn't have a budget that was with us. And like I told Denny, I said, I was fine without it unless I've been physically asked a question, say, Rick, do you know why this is this? I couldn't have looked back to find out. I mean, we had to rely on Melanie, but I'd like to see him the next time.
Yeah, you should have, but that's the other side, I agree.
And I have trouble with the fact that when we looked at the LD one, in the past, the policy has always been to let the townspeople know that if we voted to exceed LD one's limitations, it ended there. But if we chose not to exceed LD one's limitations, then we would come back to the floor, and it was, everybody was up and ready to vote, and it was sort of, I mentioned it to Jay, and I was like, people don't even understand. And you know, and I think that there should have been an explanation that the board and the townspeople have decided time and time again, only one time, outside of this, did we vote to exceed LD one. And there was some fact there that we totally could have trimmed to get it back on, you know, it was not the amount over LD one is this amount.
It was on the poster.
On the poster.
Well, I mean, and I actually stated the amount that was over, it was $56,402.
See, I didn't hear that.
No, I did
And then
say
that was trimmed down to 12, right?
We
Right,
trimmed it
because
down
then
to
I heard
12.
something about 12, and I was
Yeah.
like, there was
Yeah.
$12,000 we could have clearly taken out of
Yeah.
what was passed.
Yeah.
But it was such a hurry to get that piece done, and I
No,
thought,
that wasn't me.
I mean, the whole vote was, everybody voted quick. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't.
well, that's what I mean, is it was, you know, once that piece started, I almost felt like the explanation portion wasn't done.
We can certainly make sure that Jay does that in the next year, but the issue of how much we were over, I brought up a couple times, and in the end, when they asked what we were over, I brought up the 3 amendments we made, brought it down to 12,000. I can't remember the exact figure there, but brought it down to less than 12,000 plus or minus dollars. So, it was clear how much we were exceeding, but we'll have to make sure that the moderator explains that.
Yeah, really kind of, here's the whole scoop, folks. This is what a yes vote means, this is what a no vote means.
Before they go and
And
vote.
now, let's give everybody their voting cards.
Howard?
I'm not trying to beat on Denny until his head gets bloody, but,
You're not gonna be done.
on that same vein, we had an individual at the beginning of the discussions that didn't understand what LD1 was, and we were told, don't worry about it, wait, we'll explain it to you when we get to LD1.
You're right.
And then we got to LD1, and I almost stood up and said, wait, well, hold the time out, just for this reason. Because if that person didn't understand anything about what LD1 meant and what was involved, I'm sure that there were other people in the audience who didn't either. And I think, I was frankly quite surprised at what the vote was, because I don't know if people understood really what they were voting for.
That's a danger with every proposal like that, but
I understand that, but I, again, we know that people were questioning it. We haven't had to deal with LD1 for a number of years.
in terms of the LD1 issue, I tried to point out there was a poster that would explain it on the back wall. I tried to explain it, but when that question came up, Jay said that we'd give it to him, and
You missed it.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
I think that it seemed like the meeting had rolled along so quickly to that point, and there was a desire to take an intermission.
and Bill asked for
And then it
that.
didn't
And-
happen.
So it seemed like there was sort of this rush to okay, we're gonna vote now and take the intermission. And, you know, that was really the last thing on the docket. And so it just needs to be handled better, because let's say, for instance, that it didn't pass. I mean, everybody's milling around and so forth, and nobody was like seated, you know, for the actual adjournment of the meeting to hear, you know, Jay announced that, yeah, it passed, see you later, you know, and it wasn't the correct way to end the meeting.
Yeah, and next year we'll make it clear,
Yeah.
I'll make it clear to the moderator that,
Yeah.
that's how that.
And maybe we
If
should,
you want to do that next year.
you know, maybe
It's up
we
to you
should,
guys.
we
I'm
should
not
go
trying
through
to say-
half, maybe go through half the articles, and then take our break,
Take a break.
and then continue
But before
on.
the break, we probably should have that LD1 explanation.
But that may have been a little
Yeah.
bit of our fault too, because when if you remember, when we was talking here, we had nobody coming with food that we knew of.
Yeah,
And that's why we said,
originally,
he said, do you wanna just stop halfway through and we said, well, we don't have anybody coming with any
Yeah.
food, so let's just go through, so.
yeah,
We may have let him down that road ourselves.
yeah, that's true.
But, no, that's something that is easily fixed, but it's a clear, improvement area.
Ellen?
Well, and I think I'd like to see at the end of town meeting, this is exactly what you voted on, this is how much money that this entire warrant equals to, and this translates to this mill rate.
Well, we wouldn't know the mill rate until we get the school budget and county budget.
Yeah, but, and all those figures are in the town report,
Yeah, but we wouldn't know the,
minus what we don't know.
yeah, we wouldn't know what the mill rate impact is
Yeah.
of our budget until we get the full,
That's right.
county and school budget.
Yeah.
Well, that's not what June, because that's.
You know, what the town mill rate is.
We know, we would know what the impact, when you say town mill rate,
The mill rate for the town, and you got the county and you got the school.
that whole mill rate is figured out based on the total tax commitment that we have to make.
Right.
All right, it's not figured out by the town, by the school, by the county. It's figured out on the total budget that we have to, and we figure out how much we have to raise after all the revenues are committed and all that. We figure out how much we have to raise by tax. That determines the mill rate.
Why don't we, if we think of anything else that we'd like to have changed, send Jenny a little email.
I would love to hear, I mean,
Send us
and
all
Howard,
your
if you know other
email.
issues, or if
Or
anyone else has
anything
other
that we don't
issues.
know. Yeah. Kind of a group thing going.
I haven't had a chance to debrief the staff, but we did have a brief discussion, but I wanted to get in with the staff meeting to debrief the department heads, which we're gonna do. The other thing is, at the next meeting, and we just didn't have an opportunity to do it this year, the next town meeting, what I wanna do is actually set and put up on screens, one screen for each side, each article, so that people clearly see what's being said. Some people may have come without their warrants. I know we had a box of reports there, but, you know. So that's an issue, and then the sound system is an issue as well. We wanna make sure that is fixed, and Jason's taking care of that.
Mr. Carey.
One last thing from my point of view, which was that, you know, I think it went well, you know, compared to last year, maybe better than last year. There was a very limited number of items where we didn't have figures that were asked by, you know, various people or Mary. And you just needed to have that stuff in front of us.
We did have the question that Mary asked. She didn't hear the question. I was saying, get that out of,
Yeah.
you know, and it was there.
Yeah,
and,
okay.
I've talked to Mary about that.
Yeah, sure. Okay, that's all I.
Anything else on that? No, we're gonna move on. We're up to the warrant. You have the warrant someplace? Ellen, do you wanna do it?
Sure. Alright, this is warrant number 33, in the amount of $579,711.08.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Are you ready for us yet? Oh, I'm sorry. I was, do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any questions on it?
We do have to change the names on it,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
so we'll need something different for signing, 'cause we
Oh,
still have.
We'll just cross the names out and you can
Oh,
just cross your name out and put your name in.
Mike, did you have anything?
I'm sorry about that.
Kathy?
Well, because it was done before the election.
Oh, that's right, it was done before.
You
know how that works.
That's fair point.
So you get the warrant,
All right, I got a couple,
and if you see something that looks odd.
on the first page,
Make it.
Down
Discuss
on,
it, you can say.
I guess it's check number 16853.
Encouragement.
It looks like the solid waste, fuel 2 times, is that, do they get it twice a month or something, or twice a week?
Well, what had happened is that we paid Augusta Fuel
Considering
in
all the issues he's having with Bill.
February, but for the January deliveries, and I caught that they were charging us an outrageous price.
Just bring something.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so
I did a little price check.
and I did, and
Is this
I voided the check,
looking for
we gave
dates on
agreement, I
this?
voided that
Is this
check,
certain month?
and he changed the
That's-
prices.
not-
So
no,
that's
that's
why
for
we're
this,
paying all these invoices
2-week
again at the
period.
lower price, I think it's like fuel's $2.11 and,
We'll get a warrant.
I did the math on this one, it's $2.77 a gallon.
Payments that have
which
gone.
one?
I think on the first one, if I did it, I thought that was outrageous for off-road fuel.
Oh, yeah, for off-road, we don't have a contract, so it's basically whatever he charges us. The $2.11 is what he had for the fuel oil, and we have propane, but we didn't have a contract for,
We do it with propane,
we
correct?
do for propane, but we do not have a contract for the rest of them.
And again, I'd asked Dennis about them running off-road fuel in the winter. They shouldn't be doing that because it's not pre-mixed. I
I
don't
talked
think-
to Kenny,
Yeah, but I think you need to talk to Augusta Fuel.
okay,
Double check to see if it's off-road fuel is mixed for winter. I don't believe it is. I mean, when I did the math on this, you can buy it at the pump almost as cheap. I mean, you take the tax off and it's the same thing. So that's no deal.
It's not, and I called Fabian, and that's how we end up getting where we are.
Okay, that's fine. That answered that question. That's the only question I had. It just was on there twice and I picked it up, so,
Well, then do we put our feet and stuff out for bid?
yes.
yeah.
They just didn't put the
So-
off-road fuel out on the contract, that's all. We normally got it off the state and they brought it over. you know,
Right,
But,
because that was,
Well, here, again, this bidding process occurred,
yes,
2016 or something like that.
I think it goes out again this year.
Yeah, it's gonna go out again this year. And, we had requested, Kerry had requested last, spring for a fixed price on the, fuels. We had a propane contract for a couple of years. And there was a fixed price contract for 1 year. Kerry had requested a bid, he didn't, come back with a price on it. I requested a couple times that we needed to fix that fuel price, last summer. In fact, he saw me at the store one day and I said, look, either we get that price fixed or we're gonna have to do something else. And he said, I'll treat you right. And then, so that's where I
Paul
forgot.
Mark that we're talking
This is
about.
the Augusta fuel, this is
Wait, is this
Paul.
Pauletta?
So-
Maybe we should do a Mark Lacasse.
Well, no. So, anyhow, I saw him at the store and he said, no, we'll treat you right. When the issue came up, he had passed that on to his marketers. Apparently someone dropped the ball, as he explained, to me at least. I don't know what he said, you know.
I go through the same thing.
Yes, so he explained to me, he says, no, he says, it was a real problem, I got it all straightened out with Melanie, because Melanie was on the phone with him, as well, but he said, no, we're gonna treat you right, and they did, they came in with a pretty good price, and lower than the other prices around. So, he has, but, this spring, in fact, I'm gonna bring it up on an update, I'm gonna find out what the contracted fuel prices were last year with the school, because the school's asking us now to figure out how many gallons we can put in, but we have to get that in soon, so.
We've done it in the past and it was cheaper for us to go on our own.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just gonna try to compare prices, so when we go into a
Prices are
contract.
down, back when we were doing that, I remember, you know, oil was like $4 and something a gallon, and now,
But
you
still,
know, now we're down at half of that, and
we tried that the last time it went out for bid, they gave us
Well, I'm just gonna try to get what the contract
It
numbers
wouldn't be a
are.
bad idea to just check it
Yeah,
again.
that's what I'm gonna do.
It was cheaper for us to go on our own.
So, and Paul does treat us well, I gotta say.
well, he's a good
Okay.
guy. But I did the same thing, I went down through and I was like, did we just pay this one 3 times, and we paid this one twice?
So this has been moved and seconded. Anybody else got anything? If not,
Hang on, I'm gonna look, Speedy Gonzalez.
okay.
I got a quick
Nice
question here.
second.
On page 7, check 16889. Just as an example, do we buy things, supplies like Dawn, this is for Dawn, one bottle at a time? And This town must use more than that.
What's
Where are
this?
you looking at?
Page 7,
Page 7.
check 16889.
We get one of the large bottles and it has actually lasted us almost a year.
How large is the white bottle?
55-gallon bottle.
Yeah.
That's good.
I don't need to buy it by the case, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there's a storage issue too.
Yeah, yeah,
And the other thing, anything you have for chemicals, you gotta have the data sheets here,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they try to keep it as minimal as can be.
yeah.
It's fine, answer the question.
I do have another question on page number 2. I take it, we had to have a leak test done, on that new gas stove that just bought from, who do we buy the gas from? Augusta Fuel?
That gas is in there for the time, as I understand it, we haven't purchased any gas up there.
Dalton, you don't need the Dalton property, they're responsible for it.
No, I know, but we haven't, that gas that they're operating, then they haven't even purchased, that's been in there,
But
since we first started.
Whose tank is it?
I don't know whose tank that is.
I mean, sometimes you gotta squeeze these guys, but if that's Augusta Fuel tank,
I think it may be, but,
It is because I think that's who Gary called when they
Yeah.
had issues with Augusta.
Right.
but you need to call again, the one you normally talk to, and they'll come up and do that for nothing. Because all you gotta do is tell them that another company around is gonna come do it for nothing, and they take good care of it. And it's a true fact. They shouldn't be charging you guys for that.
I'll let,
So this is like the kitchen stove and the Dalton property?
yes,
And so we purchased a stove and then there was a question of a leak or?
No, they have, before they'll hook it up, they have to come do a leak test.
Okay.
Or after it's hooked up, they have to come do a leak test, that's it.
exactly.
And then, I would question that a little bit, I think you.
I'll talk to Gary about
I
that.
think you can get some money back, but talk to Mr. Neto. On page number 4, check number 16869, there's pharmacy charges. It's for $470. Anybody know what that is?
I don't, it doesn't specify on the bill, it's for,
department.
supplies that they have for the rescue truck.
Probably when the rescue truck goes in, they
Right.
restock.
Yeah, that's what,
Yeah, this is the first time I've seen this with pharmacy stuff in there.
Oh, yeah, it happens often.
Yeah.
Couple
I've
times a
I've seen
year.
it before.
Yeah.
Okay,
And the pharmacy up there is new, too, it's relatively new, so they may not have been buying it.
I must have missed it because I hadn't seen it before,
And this is something.
Like EpiPens and things like that, I think, and just different,
but probably Narcan and stuff like
Yeah,
that. that's new,
yeah,
yes,
that's
but-
what it is.
Okay, no, that's fine, that was just a question I had, if they,
One other quick one.
go ahead.
Yeah, same page 4, number 16867, KMD Florist. What is the recreation department doing buying
it's for the father-daughter dance. I'm not sure.
decoration type of thing?
Right, or maybe to give flowers to each of the girls, I'm not sure.
Okay. I hadn't thought of that, I couldn't think of what.
Anybody else got anything?
It says dance on there.
Hmm?
It says special dance.
Oh, yeah,
It's gotta be the father-daughter dance.
Yeah.
Probably.
So we pay both Augusta Fuel and Irving Oil.
Irving Oil is for gas for the trucks, Augusta Fuel is for fuel.
When they go
Yes.
fuel.
Okay, gotcha.
You get back to me.
I know, just, you know.
No, that's good, good.
I mean, Ricky asked questions
I do every meeting.
that I can answer most of them.
Well, we try to,
No, you
Well,
shouldn't.
we're signing our names to it.
Yeah, that's right.
I got burned once, back a while, and it ain't happening again.
Hopefully it wasn't for me.
No, it was not.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Let me guess.
Anybody else got anything?
We'll just make sure I did my check on something.
Very good to that, yeah.
I did it in pencil, so.
We're missing the voice.
Let's vote.
Okay, we're ready to vote. All in favor? 5 to 0. Thank you. Town manager,
Okay, I've just got a few issues.
why don't you take care of this part?
For the game.
So, as you probably are aware, and on Friday during voting, in the morning, when Cheryl Mitchell came in, our town clerk, came in, she saw a sign on the side of the drive coming up to the town office that she felt was within the 250-foot limit. She took it down, and about 8:25, after the polls had opened, she came in and talked to me and said, by the way, I took a sign down. And I said, well, whose sign was it? She said, I don't know, it didn't have a name on it. And what did it say? And it was vote no. I kind of figured it might have been Ernie, because, you know, Ernie's, is opposed to the Article 5. So I kind of figured, so I called him up and said, there was a voicemail, and I left a message saying, you know, I took a sign down, I think it's yours, and we're going to measure to make sure that everything is correct, because Cheryl thought it was within the 250. And then if it isn't, would you want us to put it back up someplace beyond that, or if it is, we'll just reinstall it. So essentially, that was the conversation. I can't remember all the details of that phone message. At that, right after that phone call, I called our maintenance folks to go get a measuring capability so we could measure it. So they came down. I can't remember exactly when they got there. I think it was around 9:25 or so. They came in with the measuring device. We went out and measured it. Cheryl went out. I didn't go out. Cheryl went out with Les to measure it. They measured it. It was 250 plus 30 or 40 feet, at least with our measuring device. So I said we put the sign back up. In fact, I went down and put it back up. And Cheryl came back in at the same time. I went to the polls and asked what the count was at that point in time. And there was no one in the voting booths, there were no one around. It was 16 count, and that's what it was. Then Ernie and Kathy came in a bit later, I think around 10:30. We had a good long discussion. And Ernie understood, and I said, look, we tried to address it as quickly as possible. Cheryl thought it was within the 250-foot limit, and when we measured, we found that it wasn't, we put it back up. So he was concerned, and I told him, you know, I mean, we're not trying to interfere with anyone's freedom of speech, right? But he was concerned about that. And so in any case, the end result of all of that was that he came in on yesterday, I think it was.
Yep.
It was yesterday, and we had a letter signed, which you all have, and I think there's copies over there for the board, for the public. Essentially, he said, essentially we contest the results of the election, and then he went through the illegal removal of the sign and all that. Now, I would argue that it wasn't illegally removed. Cheryl was doing her job, but she thought it was beyond the point where she had remembered measuring and putting a stick in, and that's why she removed it. We went and attempted to ameliorate that condition as soon as I found out. It took like about an hour and a half, and we put the sign back up. Nonetheless, he felt, as you can read in the letter, that it had an influence, potentially an influence on the result of the election. So, well, there are copies of their campaigns. So in any case, that's the letter. The question is, he's contesting the results. My understanding, and having discussed it with MMA, because I talked to Judy Flynn at the state, they really don't get involved in local elections. Title 21 provides us some guidance in terms of distance and stuff like that, just to go by. Title 30 is the one that governs municipal elections. And in that, as I understand from our attorney, our MMA, Title 38, Chapter 2532, the only recourse, at least in statute, is for him to request a recount. And it's Title 38, 2532. Or he can actually, I suppose, go to Superior Court, file a complaint with Superior Court, and they would request that he provide the proof that, in fact, it was illegal, it was done, whatever they would require. We don't agree that it was illegal. We understand that it was taken down. It was in the role of Cheryl as her town clerk and register of the elections clerk. So, in any case, the other opportunities that are available on this issue, the board can choose to put it out for a revote if you think it was necessary for a revote. or Ernie could go out and get a petition signed by 170, whatever the 10% is. On the recount, just to go over that, it's kind of interesting because it says in the case of a referendum, and this is a municipal election, a recount must be granted upon written application of 10% or 100, whatever is less, of the registered voters in the municipality. It's not the 170, it's 100. That's a recount. Now, these were counted by the electric machine, right?
Yeah.
Now, you were here, right? So it was 16 votes. I mean, I made sure that everyone
Yep.
heard the count.
You told everybody at this point in time, yeah.
So, the other thing Ernie could do as well, 170 signatures, I guess that's the correct number for 10% of the previous gubernatorial election. And he could have a petition to have it reconsidered. As far as taking it to court, that's up to him, that's not us. He could ask you to put it on for another revote at the next election, or he could go out and petition, and within 60 days of that petition, you would have to have an election, or make a decision, That's the status of that particular complaint. I don't know what you want me to do. I can draft a letter to Ernie. I just don't know how you want to proceed.
He hasn't asked for anything, has he?
He's contested, in the first sentence of the letter, it says, we contest the results. So there was no request for, but it's contesting the results. So is that a request? I mean, to me, it seems like there's some sort of a request.
Do we draft a letter back to Ernie that
That's the
says
question for me.
if you are, the board recognizes that you're contesting these results, this option is available to you to initiate a petition process. The number of signatures required is this.
I think that would be a fair thing, give them all the information they need if they want to go far.
If that's what you want me to do, I certainly can do that. Now,
The only question I've got, and if I may, the chair will actually go out and measure that prior to people putting up signs in it.
we went out this past fall, and she put a stick in the ground. She says at the 250 mark, right? I remember her putting a stick in the ground. And she knew generally where that was. She felt that it was far beyond that. So that's her recollection, that's her belief, that's what she acted on, all right? I can't tell you.
But you went with it when she put.
I went with her and measured. At what point she put the stick in the ground, she had indicated she felt that was the 250 mark.
But you went with it when she initially went out in the fall and put.
I went with her, and we measured the distance, and we went down to the end of the driveway.
In the
That was
fall,
over 4
not this,
feet.
not
No,
right now.
No.
It was in the fall.
So I'm not saying that was, again, I'm not saying, I don't know where she put that stick. She indicated to me that I put a stick there at the 250 mark. I'm not trying to find fault there.
No, but I'm
just saying, so she put a stick in the ground, and I said, well, when the snow melts, we'll know.
Yeah.
But that was her recollection, okay? So I think she was she has no interest in this.
Right.
I've asked her to write up a detailed kind of a timeline from her perspective. I'll be writing up my timeline. I have the times now. I just haven't written it up yet because I was involved all day long. The other issue I want to, it's kind of an interesting thing.
I'll get you after.
If you go ahead.
It's not gonna solve this issue, but may I recommend that, or make the suggestion that you go down there with a can of red spray paint
I was
and
going.
put a line on the pavement
Well, absolutely.
indicating where it is, because a stick in the snow buried 4 feet under is not gonna
That's
help
I
very
do
much.
believe that Gary Foss has done that already.
Well, no, he's talking about at the 250 mark.
It's the 250 mark, because I know somebody else went up and measured, and the light pole, which was even above where the sign is, was still within,
Yeah.
beyond the 250.
But here's the other
Hang on,
Well, I
Ellen.
have to say, is it unreasonable for the town to put forward our own policy that says the entrance to the town office, that you can't put anything on that, period?
This is what I'm talking
You know, because are we talking about the entrance to the facility, which is the end of the driveway, or are we talking about the actual door?
It's actually the door, but here is, here's an interesting thing. Now, I didn't react to this policy. I just remembered it after all of this came up, right? In fact, it was reinstituted on October 3rd of 2017, right? It's a policy on public-private use of municipal property. Now, that driveway is not a road. Remember, people were gonna name it a road. We have an address of 990 Augusta Road. So the rights of way and everything are on the state highway at 27. So the town owns the property beyond the right of way, obviously. We own that, that's municipal property. If you remember back in 2009, I think it was, we had an issue with people up at the transfer station trying to exercise their First Amendment rights, and they were yelling, there was some yelling and disagreements going back and forth, where the placement of the tables. Remember that one?
Can't imagine that.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't yelling, but you know, there was some strong kind of discourse, and I think you may remember that.
I remember, I wasn't part of it.
Yeah, no, I know. So, I was asked to put a policy together, and we had it reviewed by our lawyer, and the policy essentially talked about, this policy was put in place to provide additional guidance in public private use of municipal properties and facilities. Part of this, and this is where, now, again, I have to reiterate, I did not react to this policy. So my effort was to make sure it was 250 foot, right? So, and it was, at least it seemed according to our measurements, so that's why we put the sign back. This policy, however, says the board respects the role of free speech that are given to the citizens, and under the Constitution of the United States, the state of Maine, the following guidance is provided to ensure that the First Amendment rights are not infringed, that the business of the town of Belgrade is not disrupted, and that the health and safety of both the general public and those exercising rights are protected, right? Then it goes on, therefore, anyone that intends to engage in these protected activities on municipal property, right, must adhere to the following guidelines. Unless a facility use or rental agreement has been signed. No commercial solicitation. The town must be notified within 24 hours in advance of the activity. In other words, the placement of that sign within a 24-hour notice. Now, I don't think that's what we should go with,
No.
because, but anyhow, that actually provides you with what you're talking about. It provides that private citizens who want to use the municipal property should, at least for political free speech activities and other types of activities.
We've always gone with 250 feet.
We've gone with 250 foot on public right of ways, you know, so we've done that, but primarily because we've never been further than 250 foot away from that right of way. And that's the guidance in the state law, but anyhow, I just want to point that out.
Send a copy of that with it.
No, I don't want that. But it's up to you, I'll send it if you want.
No, probably not.
Yeah. One question I have is, can you reiterate the thought behind, there were 16 votes cast in this period of time?
And there was no one in the voting booth when I came.
Okay.
I looked around, there was no one voting, there was
Sure.
just 16 votes, and the place was clear except for the election workers.
Now, why is it assumed that all 16 votes would have gone in their favor?
I'm not assuming, I'm just saying that one could assume.
Mhm.
And you don't have any idea,
Yeah.
unless you were one of those 16 voters.
I mean, wouldn't it be fairer in some respect, I don't know, to say that 8 votes would have gone in their favor and 8 votes would have gone in
The
their
argument,
favor?
I think, I'm not a lawyer, but the argument that anyone could make is all 16 votes were negative. You don't have any way to prove that all 16 votes were positive, or that a portion were negative and positive.
But still one by one.
So the issue that he's talking
Take
about.
it 8. Didn't require all 17 to change. It only would have required 8 to change.
So the issue.
Well, if 8 changed, the issue lost by 17 votes, so it still would have lost by 9 votes.
One vote.
No.
No,
Or pass.
one, because you don't have the positives. You don't have the people voting for it who voted for it.
So if
It only takes half the number to change the turn result.
so, but in any case, he's not
I guess.
saying the number of votes here.
Yeah.
He's not. He's basically saying, look at it. He believes that it impacted, and in fact, I think he uses the word,
It could.
the removal of sign by the town official clearly violated our freedom of speech. The removal could well have had a decisive influence over the votes of Article 5. Now, that's Ernie's opinion. I respect that opinion.
Yeah.
Whether he's right or wrong is a different issue.
Sure.
But that's his opinion.
So we're gonna send him, the information.
I will send him a letter saying that, the board has requested that I follow up on your complaint.
Yep.
And that, here's a recourse that you could go out, get a petition, 170 people, and request it be put on the ballot.
You guys all set with that?
Get that number right though.
I'm pretty sure it's 100.
I believe it's 176, but
Whatever they.
just be sure you get the right number, that's all. Don't want to have another question.
No, I'm pretty sure it's 170. But,
You are?
yeah, I'm not saying how many, I'm pretty sure, but.
And is there
Pretty,
a,
but not absolute.
is there a deadline for that number of votes to be?
There's gubernatorial votes. Or I mean, for this,
Let's say he wants to start a petition, and he wants to get 176 signs.
whatever the requirement.
Can he just do that in his spare
What's the
time?
time
He can
frame?
do
For
whatever he
the
wants.
rest of the
Yeah,
year,
he can do it.
or does it
whatever he
have to
wants.
be in by a certain time?
No,
Because in the meantime, we're gonna expand someone's job and add hours. So is this, well, you know, there should be a timeframe, if there's gonna be a.
but a petition can be put in at any time. And the municipality has to act within 60 days of that petition, either by scheduling an election, a vote, or by.
My question was sort of along that lines was, if he did this and did this in the next 3 months, would it go on the November one, or would it have to be a special election?
Well, he could request a special election. It has to be reacted to within 60 days. Now, if the board voted and said, well, we don't really want to spend money on,
Because then you're looking at a public hearing and blah, blah.
well, you're looking at all of that.
Right.
So, but he can put in a warrant, I mean, a petition at any point in time. He could do it next year, he could do it this year. He could do it this year, get it approved or not approved. Say the voters voted against that petition request, then he could do it again next year. He could do it, you know, that is what the petition allows. Right?
Melanie Alexander?
So, my question is about health benefits for her, because it did pass, so she's entitled to health benefits, starting April 1st. And if we're going to put this off, are we going to allow her to get health benefits as of April 1st, or are we
You
going to?
can't put it off, you're gonna go.
The vote is done.
The vote is done, that's what I was,
And that's,
the vote is done.
yes,
There's
that's
no
Debbie's
question.
decision anyway, but
No, but the vote is done. It goes
It's not
forward.
her fault.
so anyways, yep. I think we beat that enough.
Okay, I will put out a letter, it won't be tomorrow. I was gonna tell you later, but I'm gonna be out of the office for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday on personal business. Okay, so I'll be back next Monday and I'll be getting out to as quickly as possible. So, on a couple other issues, the RSU budget meetings tomorrow night, it was scheduled originally as a governance meeting, but they are probably gonna talk a little bit about governance, but I don't think so, I mean, they may. But my understanding, this is only my understanding, that Carl was pretty happy that when he talked to me about it, he said, I think you're gonna come in less than $20,000 increase on your budget, even with the bond,
Say it again,
$20,000 or less.
less than 20,000.
That's what he said.
Including the bond?
That's what he said. Now, that's what I heard. Tomorrow night, you can go to the budget meeting and hear it from him. And you can get the accurate information, because if I misheard, then I'm not gonna put words in his mouth, but that's what I heard. The other thing is, if you remember last year as a part of the state budget, they helped the schools a bit. There was $113,000 that we got. Half of that went toward our second, you know, our year is split, so half of that was allocated in the first 6 months of their fiscal year, which is the last 6 months of our. So we have $56,000 credit. So when we go to commit, we reduce that $56,000 off the school budget. If what I heard is accurate from Mr. Gartley, that is, it was $20,000 or less, that 56 would put us into a negative increase, which is
This year.
Well, that's, I wanted to go to the meeting tomorrow night, but the snowstorm is coming and I have to be in New Jersey. So,
Where is the meeting going to be?
Are you going?
at the Messalonsky Middle School at 6 o'clock.
At the middle school?
No, Messalonsky
At the
Middle
Middle Art
School.
Center? Huh?
Middle School.
A middle school, okay.
Are you going out? I can't go, I got another engagement.
I would like to go now. Yeah. I think I can.
It would be, I really want to hear the whole thing too, because I really want to go, because I want to make a couple comments about something.
And you're gonna go?
I may go, I'll go with Howard, if you just go.
You guys want, you want, everybody's welcome,
Yes.
so.
Yeah, you're all invited, believe me.
I can't go, I've got
I have another commitment, so I can't.
So,
I'll go.
on another issue, we've passed out manuals for the new board members. I give them keys, and if you give me a 4-digit code next Monday, I'll come in and set that up for you. The other thing that we talked about a little bit was an issues briefing. Now, I have 2 pages of issues that you could be briefed on. I don't think it would be good to take up a full board meeting to talk about all these issues. What I can do is hand this out to you folks, it's a listing of issues by category, that if you want to have a particular briefing on, we could brief the board, or you could come in and I could brief you in person. It's up to you, but I thought that an issues briefing might, at least some of the issues that I see us facing in the next year, if you want to get briefed on, we can.
Sure.
It goes from the water quality issues all the way down to staffing, personnel policy issues, administrative issues. There are a couple committees I'm going to ask that you, ad hoc committees that I want to be set up, I want you guys to set up if you're agreeable, to look at the capital reserves and then to look at forever articles, because we have some duplicate, but you can't just do away with one because it's got other parts. We have to rewrite those. I'd like to have a look at that and rewrite those. Hopefully to get all this straightened up for the next board, or the next town vote. There's a couple ordinances that we're redeveloping. So there's all kinds of issues that are coming before. So next Monday, I'll get this sent out to you. If you want a particular issues brief for the board, we can prepare that. Or if you just want to come in and talk, we can do that. Hold on now. Referendum. We talked a little bit earlier about this. RSU put out a fuel request if we want to join their bid. I'll be asking for, I've already asked for contract prices for this year so I can get a sense of where they're at. Violations. We have a couple things going on with violations. As you know, we solved the Sandy Cove violation. We got a $4,000 penalty plus restoration of all the problems. That was good. We have an ongoing, in fact, court case coming up with Ben's Auto. There's a hearing on April 18th at 8:30 in the morning for violations that he's incurred, and well, there's a whole issue there I can talk to you about. But it's, so Gary will be going to that meeting. I might attend if I am able to, but that'll be Gary's meeting.
I will have a question on that.
Yeah, I have a question on that.
Yeah.
Does the town have any authority in the situation with that business parking on the road right away?
The board of selectmen are the people that control roads in this town, and if you have a parking ordinance, you can do what you want.
I'm not talking about, well, okay.
If you don't have a parking ordinance, you can do what you want.
They're parking,
You have,
there were a number of times, obviously I go past frequently, and there's a number of times when they've got cars parked
on the side of it.
they're not on the side of the road. Partially because of the structure of the road, but partially because of the snowbanks now, they're in the lane of traffic.
That's a traffic hazard. You can call the sheriff or the state police.
Absolutely.
I have, there's no enforcement capability. We don't have the parking.
Maybe we should have one.
So,
Just sit over there and be quiet.
That's a good idea.
We'll talk about that next week.
So-
What happened
Is there a noise there? Should I hear noise?
for my house, couple of
We're gonna skip right over it.
police.
we talked, Will.
And then
But-
we're gonna
oh,
put
sure.
up phones and.
Because that was a destruction of the edges of the road. They were destroying the road because people wouldn't
See what happens.
Yeah, that's true. So,
Aaron's doing.
that's all of the issues unless anyone, do you think of anything for ag? There is a number of activities we have to get moving because of the votes, and those we will be putting forward. We're going to be putting out RFPs for the IT issue, to get our IT up to date, and do, I want to do backups and secure wall site and all that. Cages we will be putting up. So you'll see us in a lot, plus there's a number of policies and stuff I have to rewrite. I'm working on finalizing, and I'll be getting the budget committee's input on this, but a budget development process. So that, we had some questions about our budget development process. There were some issues that came up as a result of how we moved forward this past year. So we're putting a process together to more fully involve the budget committee earlier on than we did this year.
We just had a meeting, got it all worked out, so.
Well, I'll,
You just let us know what we're doing.
so other than that, there's nothing going.
I would like to see somebody from the planning board here at the next meeting. The 30% rule that we asked them to get moving on,
Yeah,
you remember, right?
have to work on it.
It's in the back corner. I've heard from two members they're not touching it now.
What's the 30% rule?
Only
This, go ahead. This is a shoreline zoning issue. Under the rewrite of the shoreline zoning law that the state has, they authorize an increase of 30% of the square footage, the footprint on a property, which is less restrictive than the current rule that we have in place. So the board is rewriting shoreline zoning law, and right now we're reviewing the whole thing, going through it step by step. And that particular issue, there's disagreement about whether that 30% expansion should be allowed or not in our shoreline zoning world. And so there's a disagreement on the board. So the board has put that off to one side, as I understand, until they work on other issues, and then they can bring that forward. The last time we brought Peter in, the chairman of the board, his estimate was that we would probably see that ordinance in a completed form, at least as recommended by the majority of the planning board, sometime, I thought, toward the end of the summer, if I'm not mistaken. He thought it would go, people were kind of pushing for the spring ballot, school budget ballot, to put it on that. He didn't think that would happen, so I heard he was, what I thought he said was, you probably have that from the November ballot. So
it is ridiculous, but there are people that wanna do stuff and can't. And you know what, they talk about water quality. When people go 30% bigger, they're gonna have to change their septic systems. Where are we gonna save? Right there. They've got to. But anyways,
well, that's
it's a law that should be put on place.
That is a process, as you know, the planning board does those ordinances.
I know.
They review them, they recommend them, and it's up to you how you want to deal. And then it
Told them
goes
we wanted to put
to
priority.
town vote.
Told them we want a priority on that. And
And that's what they've been working on.
it says in the corner, like two of the members are telling me, and they're not working on it.
No, they've been working on it, but they have other issues they have to deal with too. But I think what I'm hearing you say is, they put that issue, that single issue, off to the side until they can work through the rest of the thing. No matter what happens, that has to be addressed before it comes to the.
That's not exactly the way.
I don't know, I'm just saying that's what I'm hearing.
I'm just telling you. We need to see.
Wasn't, part of this discussion was that Rome had already done it, I mean, right?
Smithfield.
Or Smithfield?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, they had moved quickly and it happened and it was good.
Many towns have done.
Yeah,
So
so
here's,
first reinvent the wheel.
Yeah,
I'm not going to argue one way or another with the rule, I'm just going to let you know the board process. As I understand it, is that they try to come to a consensus agreement on these issues. Some board members feel that 30% expansion may impair water quality. Others disagree. They think it will help local property owners and, like you said, maybe even improve water quality. But right now, that's such a contentious issue, that's why I understand, and I'll have to ask Peter this, but you can ask him yourself.
We'll ask him when he comes in.
That's why they put that particular issue off to one side, because it's so contentious, they can't come to agreement on it right now.
Put it to the voters.
Well, they may have to, that may be what happens. But anyways, thank you, just as long as they can, somebody can come in and explain it.
I want my policy book back.
Anybody else?
We gotta finish up with the 3 policies that you have questions.
Anybody else got anything that they wanna bring in?
No, sir?
Public, anybody wanna say anything? No, I sure.
Real quick, we used to have on the thing the public comment.
Yeah.
Would you like to have a public comment for?
That's kind of what I thought otherwise, but that's what I
Okay, we'll put that as public comment.
That's fine, yep.
We had changed a while ago to other business.
Yeah.
Cover that if somebody had some other business.
Well, you can have other and public.
No, they would be here forever.
I was gonna welcome you guys to the board too, and I didn't do that at the
Well,
beginning.
you can always just give 15 minutes for public comment.
Generally, it's fine.
You don't have to do 5 hours worth of public comment.
No, I think what they used to have was a 5 minute.
It doesn't take long, people, Don't really have much, but
Except for how,
we're running a little longer tonight because Melanie asked a lot of questions, but we're gonna stop there.
no, you're not.
No, but I want to welcome you guys on, and I should have done that right off the bat, and I didn't. And kind of want us to try to work as a team, so we'll see how we're gonna be put on the spot, I think, done.
Thank you.
All right?
Just a little like home.
Yeah. All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Anybody ever vote against that?
I did once. I think-
What'd you say, like, so you wanna stay here all day, all night?
No, no. Hey, these are short meetings.
Oh, we used to have some